The executioner's block smelled of rain and old blood. Camilla knelt in the mud of the Crescent Pack's central square, her wrists bound with silver chains that sizzled against her pale skin. The crowd pressed in around her. 200 wolves who had once called her Lady Camilla, now screaming for her death. Their faces blurred into a single, hungry maw. She did not cry. She had forgotten how. For the crime of being wolfless, the high beta Ambrose intoned from the stone dais. For the crime of bringing shame to this pack for 23 years, and for the attempted murder of the Alpha's true mate, you are sentenced to die. Camilla almost laughed at the last charge. She had never touched Margaret, the silken-haired she-wolf who had slithered into Julian's bed 3 months ago. But Margaret had claimed Camilla pushed her down the stairs, and Julian, her husband of 5 miserable years, had believed her. Of course he had. Julian believed anything that let him forget he had married a ghost. She lifted her head. Through the rain she saw him standing on the dais, crowned in obsidian and wolf fur, the Alpha King of the Eastern Territories. Julian, her captor, her tormentor, the father of the child she had lost in a fit of his rage 2 winters ago. He would not meet her eyes. Margaret stood beside him, one possessive hand on his arm, her smile a wound. She was pregnant, her belly round beneath her cloak. His child. Camilla had watched the announcement 3 weeks ago, standing in the servants' corridor while the pack cheered. "Any last words?" Ambrose asked. He was not cruel, not really, just weak. Just obedient. Camilla turned her gaze past him, past Julian, past the jeering crowd. She looked at the sky, black and bruised, the moon hidden behind a curtain of storm. She had prayed to that moon every night for a decade. Every night since she was 13, when her wolf should have emerged and instead left her hollow. "Please," she had whispered. "Please, I don't want to die alone." The moon did not answer. "No words," she said quietly. "Just a question." The crowd hushed. Julian finally looked at her. His jaw was tight, his golden eyes flat with something that might have been guilt or might have been disgust. With him, it was impossible to tell. "What question?" he asked. His voice was the same voice that had once whispered mine against her throat. Now it scraped. Camilla smiled. It was not a kind smile. "Do you remember the night you marked me, Julian?" A ripple went through the crowd. Julian's face flickered, a crack in the mask. Of course he remembered. He had been drunk on victory and cheap wine, fresh from killing his own father for the throne. He had taken Camilla in the mud of a battlefield, teeth sinking into her neck before she could say yes or no. She had said yes anyway. She had been 17 and stupid, and so desperate to be loved that she had mistaken ownership for devotion. "That mark died the day your wolf didn't come," Julian said coldly. "You are nothing. Nothing." The word should have cut. Instead, it settled into her chest like a key turning a lock. The executioner stepped forward. A massive gray wolf in human skin, he hefted the silver axe. The blade caught the torchlight, gleaming with the promise of severance. Head from neck, soul from body. "On your knees," he grunted. Camilla did not move. "No." The crowd gasped. Ambrose's hand twitched toward his sword. Julian took a step forward, then stopped himself. Margaret whispered something in his ear, her eyes glittering. "Camilla," Julian said, and her name in his mouth tasted like poison. "Do not make this harder than it has to be." Harder. As if he were the one with silver burning through his veins. As if he were the one about to die because a pregnant liar had snapped her own heel on purpose. "I want you to watch," Camilla said, and her voice was no longer quiet. It rang across the square, strange and clear, like a bell in a tomb. "Watch closely, Julian. Because you are about to see something no Alpha King has seen in 1,000 years. She closed her eyes. The crowd laughed. Ambrose sighed. Julian raised his hand to give the signal. And then the moon broke through the clouds. It was impossible. The storm had been unbroken for days, but suddenly the clouds tore apart like a curtain ripped from a window, and the full moon, huge, silver-white, blinding, poured its light directly onto Camilla's kneeling form. The silver chains shattered. Not melted, not broken. Shattered, as if the metal had decided it would rather cease to exist than touch her a second longer. Shards of silver rained onto the mud, hissing like dying snakes. Camilla rose to her feet, and behind her, something ancient and golden unfurled from her shadow. It was a wolf. No, it was the wolf. The one from the oldest stories, the ones even the elders whispered only in the dark. Its fur was not gray or brown or black. It was molten gold, so bright that wolves in the crowd cried out and covered their eyes. Its eyes were twin suns, and when it opened its mouth, the sound that came out was not a growl. It was a song. A low, harmonic note that vibrated in the bones of every wolf present, that made the torches flare and the ground tremble. The golden Luna. Camilla felt it like a second heartbeat. No, like a first heartbeat. The wolf that had slept inside her for 23 years. The wolf that every seer and prophecy had claimed was a myth. The wolf that had been waiting not for her to be worthy, but for her to be empty enough to hold it. She turned to face Julian. He had collapsed. The Alpha King, the most powerful wolf in the Eastern Territories, was on his knees in the mud. His crown had fallen from his head. His golden eyes, so like hers now, but dim, so dim, were wide with a horror that looked like worship. No, he breathed. No, it can't be. The golden Luna is a legend. It can't. It can, Camilla said, and her voice was no longer entirely her own. The wolf spoke through her, old and terrible and patient. And it chose the woman you tried to kill. Margaret screamed. She stumbled backward, clutching her belly. But no one looked at her. No one could look away from Camilla. The golden wolf stepped forward, and where its paws touched the mud, flowers bloomed. Moonflowers, white and silver, pushing up through the blood-soaked earth. The pack fell to their knees, one by one, not in judgment, but in prayer. Ambrose was the last to kneel. His face was bloodless. He had been the one to bind her. He had been the one to call her worthless. "My Luna," he whispered, and pressed his forehead to the ground. Camilla looked down at Julian. He was weeping. The Alpha King, who had never shed a tear for her, who had watched her miscarry in silence, who had signed her death warrant with a bored flick of his wrist. He was weeping like a child. "Please," he said. "Camilla, please, I didn't know." "I didn't." "You knew," she said. "You always knew I was something. You just hated that you couldn't control it." She turned her back on him. The golden wolf turned with her, a shield of living light. "The sentence is over," Camilla announced, and her voice carried to every wolf in every pack for 100 miles. But the judgment has only begun. The rain stopped. The moon held still. And Camilla walked out of the square, her wolf at her side, leaving the Alpha King sobbing in the mud. Camilla walked until the pack square was a distant memory, and the scent of rain became the scent of pine and wet stone. She walked until her legs shook and her new wolf, her, pulsed beneath her skin like a second heart, still learning the rhythm of her bones. The golden wolf did not fade. It stayed beside her, solid and warm, its fur casting soft light onto the forest floor. Moonflowers continued to bloom in her footprints. She stopped at the edge of the Whispering Creek, the boundary between Crescent territory and the lawless wilds beyond. Here, the pack's claim ended. Here, she was no one's Luna. "Are you real?" she asked the wolf. The wolf tilted its head. Its eyes were the color of molten crowns. Then, without warning, it pressed forward, not into her, but through her, like light through glass. Camilla gasped as the wolf's power flooded her veins, not as a separate creature, but as an extension of her own soul. "I am you," a voice said. It was old, older than the moon. "And you are me. We have been waiting a long time, little star." Camilla sank to her knees at the creek's edge. The water reflected not her pale, hollow-cheeked face, but a woman crowned in gold, her eyes burning like twin suns. She looked like a goddess. She looked like vengeance. "Why now?" she asked silently. "Why not when he beat me? Why not when my child died? Why not any of the 1,000 nights I begged for you?" The wolf's voice softened. "Because you were not empty enough then. You still had hope that he would save you." "Hope is a lock, Camilla. Despair is the key." She understood. The wolf had not come when she prayed for rescue. It had come when she stopped praying entirely, when she knelt before the axe and made peace with oblivion. Only then had there been room for something greater than survival. Only then had she been ready to become a weapon. 3 days later, they found her. Not Julian. Julian was still in the pack square, they said, catatonic. The Alpha King, who had never knelt to anyone, now refused to stand. Margaret had fled before sunrise on the night of the execution, her pregnant belly bouncing as she ran. No one had followed. The one who found Camilla was Ambrose. He came alone, without silver or sword, his hands raised in the old sign of submission. He found her in a cave behind a waterfall, sitting cross-legged on a bed of moonflowers, her golden wolf curled around her like a living cloak. "Luna," he said, and his voice cracked. Camilla opened her eyes. They were no longer brown. They were pure, liquid gold. "Beta," she replied. "Come to finish the job?" Ambrose fell to his knees in the cave entrance, water streaming down his face. "I came to beg." "Begging implies I owe you something." "You don't." He pressed his forehead to the stone. "But the pack does. I chained you. I called you wolfless. I stood silent while Margaret lied and Julian signed your death. I am damned. I know I am damned. But the pack is dying, Luna. Without a true Luna, without the moon's favor, our crops are rotting. Our wolves are going mad. And Julian is not my concern. Julian has not eaten in 3 days. He speaks only your name. The elders say the mark he gave you, the one that should have faded, has turned black on his neck. It's killing him, Camilla. And the bond you share, the one you thought was broken, it was only sleeping. And now that you have awakened, it is consuming him from the inside." Camilla felt nothing. That was the miracle of despair. It had burned away everything soft. "The bond was his doing," she said. "He marked me without consent. He fed on my magic for 5 years, draining whatever wolf might have been growing inside me. Did you know that, Ambrose? Every time he touched me, he took. Every time he screamed at me, he took. Every time he fucked Margaret in our bed while I listened from the hallway, he took." Ambrose's shoulders shook. "I didn't know. You didn't want to know." Silence. The waterfall roared. Finally, Ambrose lifted his head. His eyes were red, but not with tears, with the first stages of moon madness. The pack's sickness was real. Without a Luna to anchor them, they were unmoored. "I am not asking you to forgive him," Ambrose said. "I am asking you to come back so that children do not starve. I am asking you to be the Luna you were always meant to be. Not for Julian, not for me, but for the wolves who have no power and no voice. The ones like you." Camilla looked at her golden wolf. The wolf looked back. "He speaks truth," the wolf said. "The pack's suffering is real, but so is your rage. You may carry both." "And Julian?" Camilla asked aloud. Ambrose flinched. "The law is clear. An alpha who harms his Luna forfeits his crown. You could depose him. You could execute him. You could—" "I could do nothing," Camilla interrupted. "I could let him rot in his madness and take the throne for myself. The Golden Luna has the right to rule. Not as a king's wife. As a queen." Ambrose bowed lower. "Then that is what I will tell the pack. Long live the queen." He rose to leave. "Ambrose." He stopped. Camilla stood. The golden wolf stood with her, and together they filled the cave with light. "I will return," she said. "Not for Julian, not for the throne, for the children you mentioned, for every wolf who has ever knelt in the mud and been told they were nothing." She walked past him into the rain. "But I will not return alone. Tell the pack to prepare for a reckoning. And tell Julian that if he wants to live, he will crawl to me on his belly and beg for the mercy he never showed me." She returned at dusk. The pack square had been transformed. The executioner's block was gone, replaced by an altar of white stone. Moonflowers, the same ones that had bloomed beneath her feet, now grew in cracks throughout the village, pushing through the decay like hope through despair. Every wolf was on their knees, hundreds of them, thousands. Even the elders, even the children, even the wolves who had thrown stones at her 3 days ago. And at the center, crawling through the mud, was Julian. The Alpha King was unrecognizable. His crown was gone. His fine cloaks were rags. The mark on his neck, the one he had given her in violence and called a bond, had turned black and weeping, spreading tendrils of infection across his throat. His eyes, once golden, were now bloodshot and hollow. He crawled to her feet. He did not stand. He did not speak. He just pressed his forehead to her boots and waited. Camilla looked down at him. She remembered the night he had taken her to his bed for the first time. Not in love, but in conquest. She remembered the way he had laughed when she cried. She remembered the cold floor of the nursery, empty after the bleeding, and the way he had said try again. She could kill him now. One word to her wolf, and his heart would stop. "But death is too quick," the wolf whispered. "And you are not a killer, little star. You are a queen." Camilla lifted her foot and placed it gently on Julian's bowed head. "Rise," she said. He looked up, hope cracking his face open. She smiled. It was not a kind smile. "I didn't say you were forgiven. I said rise. You belong to me now, Julian. Every breath you take I permit. Every move you make I watch. You wanted a wolf to own? Congratulations. You are now owned." She turned to the pack, her voice ringing like a bell. "The old laws are dead. There is no Alpha King. There is only the Golden Luna. And under my reign, no wolf will ever be called wolfless again. No wolf will be chained for being different. No wolf will die alone in the mud." The pack howled, not in fear, in worship. And behind her, Julian began to weep, not in rage, but in relief. Because even this, even chains and humiliation and being owned by the woman he had tried to kill, was better than the silence of the wolf's absence. Camilla felt nothing for him, but she felt everything for the pack. And that, she realized, was the difference between a king and a queen. A king rules through fear. A queen rules through the simple, devastating truth that she does not need a throne to be a crown.
1 month later, the messengers returned. They came from every territory, north, south, west, and the fractured eastern lands that Julian had once ruled. They came on 2 legs and 4, bearing white flags and trembling hands. Each carried the same message. The Alphas want an audience. Camilla received them in the Crescent Pack square, but the square was no longer a place of execution. Moonflowers had consumed it. White petals climbed the stone dais where Julian once sat. They curled around the posts where wolves had been chained. They grew thickest where Camilla had knelt, a carpet of silver white so dense that no mud remained. The golden wolf sat beside her, patient as a mountain. Camilla had learned to wear her wolf like a crown now, not separate, not summoned, simply present, like a second layer of skin made of sunlight. Her eyes stayed gold. Her hair had grown white at the temples, not age, but the moon's fingerprint. "Send them in," she said. Ambrose bowed. He had not stopped bowing since she returned. Not out of fear, out of something worse, genuine devotion. The Alphas entered like men walking to their own funerals. There were 7 of them, the strongest wolves in the continent. Each had once knelt to Julian. Each had once sent mocking gifts to the wolfless Luna. Each had placed bets on how long she would last before Julian killed her. Now they walked through moonflowers and tried not to meet her eyes. "Kneel," Ambrose said. They knelt. Camilla walked among them slowly. Her bare feet made no sound on the petals. The golden wolf matched her pace, its fur brushing against the Alpha's shoulders as it passed. Several of them flinched. One whimpered. "You came to beg," Camilla said. It was not a question. The eldest Alpha, a gray-bearded wolf named Theron from the northern highlands, lifted his head. "We came to understand." "Understand what?" "Why you haven't killed us." Camilla stopped in front of him. She crouched down, bringing her gold eyes level with his gray ones. He smelled like old blood and older pride. "Should I kill you?" she asked. Theron swallowed. "You have the right. Our pack sent silver to Crescent Pack. Our wolves laughed at your suffering. We did nothing, while Julian did what every Alpha does," Camilla finished. "Take, break, discard." Silence. She stood and turned to face all 7. "I am not Julian," she said. "I am not your fathers or your kings or the men who taught you that strength means cruelty. The Golden Luna does not rule through fear." One of the younger Alphas, a scarred woman named Vega, spoke without permission. "Then, how do you rule?" Camilla smiled. It was the first genuine smile she had given in weeks. "I rule through hunger," she said. "The moon does not command the tides to rise. It simply rises, and the tides obey because they have no choice." She raised her hand. The golden wolf raised its head, and in that instant, every Alpha in the room felt it a pull deep in their chests, like a string tied to their hearts, drawing them toward her. The mate bond, but not for one wolf, for all of them. "You are not my mates," Camilla said, watching their faces contort. "But I am your Luna. That bond flows both ways. You feel what I feel. You hunger when I hunger. And right now, I am hungry for something new." She dropped her hand. The pull released. 7 Alphas gasped for breath. "What do you want?" Vega whispered. Camilla walked to the center of the square. The moonflowers parted for her. The golden wolf curled at her feet. "I want a new law," she said, "written in blood and sealed by every Alpha present. From this day forward, no wolf may be called wolfless. No wolf may be bound in silver for being different. No wolf may be marked without consent. And any Alpha who raises a hand to his Luna loses his wolf." The Alphas stared. "You can't do that," Theron said. "The wolf is the moon's gift. The moon doesn't." "The moon just did," Camilla said. "Look at me." She stepped closer. The golden light around her intensified. Moonflowers bloomed at her feet, creeping toward the Alphas, climbing their knees. "I was wolfless for 23 years, she said. "Do you know why? Not because the moon forgot me, because the moon was saving me, for this moment, for this law, for every broken girl kneeling in the mud right now, counting down the seconds until an axe falls." Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. "There are Camillas in every pack, right now, tonight, being beaten, being starved, being told they are nothing, and the moon is listening to every single one of them, waiting for them to become empty enough." She looked at the Alphas one by one. "You can go back to your territories. You can pretend this didn't happen. You can wait for your own executioner to bloom at your feet." She gestured to the moonflowers. "Or you can sign." They signed. Every single one. Theron's hand shook. Vega cried silently. The youngest Alpha, a boy of 19 who had inherited his throne too soon, signed twice, as if his name might not be enough. When the last mark was made, Camilla looked at the document. 7 names. 7 packs. 7 promises. She pressed her palm to the paper. A moonflower grew through her fingers, embedding itself in the ink. "So it is sealed," she said. Behind her, footsteps. She didn't turn. She already knew the scent. Rotting vines, blackened marks, the smell of a man who had been reduced to something less than a wolf. Julian stood at the edge of the moonflower field. He was clean now, Ambrose had seen to that, but his eyes were still hollow. The black mark on his neck had stopped spreading, but it hadn't healed. It simply was, like a brand. "I felt that," he said. His voice was soft, broken. "The bond. You pulled all of them." Camilla finally turned. "Yes. Why?" "Because you taught me something, Julian. You taught me that one wolf owning another is poison. But one wolf holding another, that's power." She walked toward him. The moonflowers did not part for him. They clawed at his ankles, holding him in place. "You are going to live a very long life," she said. "You are going to watch me build something you could never imagine. You are going to watch alphas kneel, and laws change, and girls who were called wolfless become queens." She stopped inches from his face. "And every single night, you are going to lie awake and know that you had me, and you made me into this." She touched his blackened mark. He flinched. "The bond stays," she said. "Not because I love you, because I want you to feel every wolf I save, every girl who survives, every pack that thrives under a Luna's hand instead of an Alpha's fist." She stepped back. "You wanted to own a goddess, Julian. Congratulations. She owns you." That night, Camilla stood at the edge of the Whispering Creek. The golden wolf stood beside her. The moon was full overhead, the same moon that had shattered her chains, that had bloomed flowers from her blood, that had waited 23 years for her to become empty enough. "Are you happy now?" she asked silently. The wolf's voice came warm and old. "Happiness is for girls who were never chained. You have something better." "What?" "Purpose." Camilla looked at her reflection in the water. A woman with gold eyes and white temples and a wolf made of light standing behind her. Not a victim, not a wife, not a wolfless failure. The golden Luna. Behind her, in the village, she could hear the pack rebuilding. Not for Julian, not out of fear, out of something new. Hope. She had not asked for this, had not prayed for it, had not earned it by any measure the world understood. But the moon did not measure the way the world did. The moon measured emptiness. And Camilla had been empty enough to hold the stars. She turned from the creek and walked back toward her pack. Her pack, not his, with the golden wolf at her side and moonflowers blooming in her footsteps. The axe never fell. The queen did. If you love this story, please like, comment, subscribe, and share to your loved ones. If you need part 2, indicate in the comment section. Goodbye, my royal family.